Imagine going from $0 to $1,000 per day. How? By creating AI agents that deliver high-value services like expert-level email newsletters, content marketing, or even SEO. These services are so valuable that each client will pay you $5,000 to $10,000 per month. But what's crazy is you can now deliver these high-end services in minutes using clever AI agents. And if you think this is just for tech wizards, think again. We're breaking down exactly how you can build MCP-enabled AI agents. This new method essentially gives AI superpowers, allowing it to browse the web, scrape social media, and perform complex tasks just like a professional would. So today, you'll learn step by step how we've built 5 such agents, automating everything from those high-ticket newsletters to in-depth social media analysis to content idea generation, SEO reporting, and even scripting your YouTube videos. We'll show you how to build these agents and how you can make serious money from them by launching brand new, lucrative services, or even by saving these costs if you want to run them in your own business. So if you're ready to turn AI into a serious revenue stream, let's get into it. Okay, so the first opportunity we're going to be doing is an email marketing manager who manages an email newsletter. And now this is something we have personal experience on, Gail, as we've been running our own email newsletter for over 10 years now. And you do pretty much all of this single-handedly. And it's also to a very high standard. So what's the secret here?
Yeah, and I spend about 2 to 3 hours a week to write an email. I kind of open my inbox here so you guys can see. These are the replies I'm getting from people. These are people that engage with the newsletter, read this, and essentially like it and ask me questions or whatever, right? And it's like, lots of like, thanks you, just to show you like, this is not AI slop. People like this stuff and engage.
And I think that is the difference between what we're talking about throughout this whole episode today and most other kind of AI use cases is they give you pretty like cookie cutter, like here's how to make a shitty article or a post on social media. But this is something which has driven us a lot of revenue over the years. And
engagement.
Drives serious engagement.
People actually like it, right? Like Simon, he's the CEO of a big company, right? For example, he replied here, we get good people from this. I even have our email marketing tool just to show the open rates are pretty healthy overall, like everything you can see, everything's green and great and good. 30% open rate on a list to tens of thousands of people. I would argue that's pretty good, especially given the click-through rate as well is also very high to these things. So that just gives you an idea that this is not slop. And so the way I do that is I prepare the newsletter. There's still a bit of a human work in there, but I'm going to show you what I give to AI. So I work in Notion, and basically, this is actually the full one. So let me give you the last one where I literally just wrote a bunch of shit. So I'm just putting random bullet points of what goes through my head of like what should be talked about in the intro. Not well written.
Essentially,
not well
this is a brain dump, right? You're not even structuring this.
Yeah, I don't care. So I'm like, TBH, this is the first 3 months of the year catch up. Like this was a long intro, like sharing about our current state, etc. And I'm just kind of like dumping shit. Sponsor, I didn't even write it because I let AI write it. I'll show you how I do this later. I'm like, main content. Okay, AI is cool. I use it a lot, And it's just a bunch of bullet points. It's not that long, as you can see. Like this takes 5 minutes to make a note like this. Same for the links. There's a section where I share links, like cool links for the week or something. And I put the link, but I don't even explain what it is because I will have AI do all the work and open these links, read what's behind, understand what it is, and write the description for people. Same for the tool of the week. You can see I say tool of the week descript. I'm like, research it and then rewrite and write it. Why? Because I know AI can just go and do this for me. So it's like I'm talking to AI a little bit like I would talk to like an intern or something, like an intern.
Yeah, I could see yourself like if you were to give this to an email marketing manager and say like, hey, go produce this email newsletter, that would be their task. So why don't you show us what's actually going on behind the scenes to get it from this to the end result. And then we can look at how much that would cost us to do otherwise if we were hiring a freelancer or someone full-time or even an agency to do this for us, because that's quite interesting, the amount of money that we've saved here.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say like these notes are essentially my expertise, right? It's like I know some of this stuff that AI won't find, but everything else AI can Google and just let it do it basically. So then I take all these notes to Typing Mind and I have an agent that's pre-written. So in this case, I don't even have to...
Hold on. For those not familiar with Typing Mind, do you want to just explain what that is?
Typing Mind, let's say it's kind of like an advanced version of ChatGPT that allows you to connect a bunch of tools and allows you to connect connect every single AI model that there is on the planet, basically. So I'm able to switch the model. I'm able to, like you will see in this case, I give it access to tools like Perplexity, like Firecrawl, etc., so that the AI can do all the research I ask it to do. It's a better, more professional ChatGPT, let's just say that. And I can
Is it kind of like instead of being locked to Netflix, we're using Pirate Bay and we can just get all the content in one place.
That's not, we're paying for this.
It's a professional tool and completely above board. But,
but the good thing with TypingMine is there's no subscription. So you buy it one off and then you just pay your API costs and that's about it, basically. And so like, because I have pre-prompted it, and I'm going to show you the prompt in a second, I just say like, use these notes and write the newsletter. And I just dump my Notion notes that I copy paste. You can see like literally not well formatted. I don't give a shit. And then AI essentially has a planning phase where it just kind of like essentially digests what I give it, thinks about what it's going to have to research. So it finds the knowledge gap that it has, like, oh, I don't know about this script. He didn't give me the information. I'm going to have to research this. I need to research Open Router and their free tier. I need to verify some information about OpenAI. And I need some details about the sponsor section because it wasn't provided, right? And so it thinks about which search queries it's going to do. It rethinks of the style.
Let's just break down a few things here. You've then selected Claude as the model specifically because it's good at writing or because it's good at figuring out all these questions and using these tools?
Claude is good at writing, but also at tool usage, model for tool usage. So because I'm asking it to use all these tools, you can see after that, like it's starting to use Perplexity to do some researches. So it's like, oh, descript video editing tools, features and benefit. And then it just like gets the result from Perplexity that essentially fills the context with like what is Descript and what it does and what are the good stuff about it. I didn't have to do it myself.
You're letting one AI use another AI
yes,
to improve its ability to answer your original question. Is that right?
Yeah. And then also I know that it's going to be able to find it, so I don't bother in my notes. I save time that way. It's the same way as you would give the low-level task to the intern. You'd be like, you go figure this out. But the top-level expertise stuff, I would probably put in my notes because I know it's not going to be obvious in the Googling or something like this. So that's essentially what's happening here. And so like, yeah, I knew it can find the features of the script. You can see it like went on the homepage, it went on the pricing page, it read some reviews, it did all of that, and then it just gathered all the information for itself. Very good. And then after that, it search for like the Open Router free tier limit because that's in the body of the newsletter. And I don't think I precised it. Maybe I forgot to put it in my notes. So it kind of identified that and started to do some research. And you can see that, for example, it found that in the free tier, you get 50 free calls. But if you have more than $10 balance, you get 1,000 free calls. So that was kind of like a nugget that we got for the newsletter. Found it on its own.
Is that something you knew before? Or that's something that
I discovered it as I put together the newsletter. It's actually true. It's like if you check our bank statement, you'll see I topped up Open Router after that. So great. Again, fill the gap, did the research, and I have all the sources here. So if I wanted to, verify the work, I could just open these URLs and look at this basically.
This is all really possible because of the reasoning or thinking models that we've talked about before on the show, right?
Untrue. You can do it with a non-reasoning model. It's just like tool calling is different from reasoning. So this is different. So it's like a model can call a tool, then do an answer, then call a tool, then do an answer. Essentially just chain prompts, right?
Is it not thinking about which tool to use though in this case?
It is in the prompt.
So usually, process?
So for agents, you need to tell them in the prompt. So we're going to go to a prompt in a second, but I tell it, use Perplexity. Here's the tools you have. Here's the list of the tools. Here's when to use them in the process, blah, blah, blah. You prompt for it because otherwise agents can do crazy things. Like I've had an agent do 100 tool calls because I didn't specify. That was like a $7 mistake, basically, in a API calls. That can happen. So you guide them.
You want to talk about how it interacts with tools, or are you covering that later then?
Let's just finish going through what it does and the first output. So again, it searched for the Perplexity, it searched for AI Studio, and you can see it did not reason actually. I used the non-reasoning model. Reason why is because for writing, you don't really need reasoning. And then you can see that the output I get is, the sponsor, it made it up because I didn't give it anything. What people got here was mostly what they got in the end, except it was a bit too long. So I kind of get the first draft, but it still was pretty good, I think. And then I get the first draft. I just make a list of things to change, basically. I like it, but like change these 3 things. And then just basically...
This is like you're giving feedback to your editor who just done the first draft.
And for some stuff, I'm like, I don't like the way you did the math because this was like math related, like, with like cost of API, etc. So I was like, I don't like how you calculated that. So I did some research on like, what's the current price for the per million token for this API to recalculate the value, etc. That. And it keeps going. And so basically you can do that. And then when you're happy, you basically...
Is this good enough to send like after that first round of revisions?
So it depends. It depends. Sometimes, literally after 1 round of revision, I just send it. I think last week, that's what happened. Some weeks, this one was a little bit longer. Reason why, I disagree with the math, basically. So it's like, I disagree with the math. I just kind of like, we had a few rounds, but it's pretty quick. Like, it's a long chat, but I don't write very much. I think it was like 4 rounds, and I sent it. Total time spent about an hour, basically. Between writing this and then just going back and forth, rereading. Again, I didn't read everything every time it would output. I would just reread the problematic sections. So that's pretty much like the way. And then also on typing mine, you have this canvas, so you can actually click on this button. And if you wanted to rewrite a sentence, you could actually select this, enter your prompt, and be like, make it shorter or whatever. And then it would just kind of rewrite only that sentence.
That's really cool. It's kind of like leaving a comment in a Google Doc, and then AI is just automatically fixing it for you.
And then it goes back to chat format. So you can alternate between doing canvas and doing chat format. Now let's go to the prompt if you want to see how this works.
So when you say going to the prompt, we're talking about the kind of system prompt behind this, because you gave it a prompt initially, which was
But there's no prompt really. I said write a newsletter.
The reason you were able to give such a short instruction is because you've explained what the newsletter is here.
Yep. So like that's the thing. It's like a pre-prompt. When you're gonna do repetitive tasks, you make like one of these agents and you just use it again and again. And that's the reason I can do the newsletter in an hour and a half.
Let's just pause there for a second, because the word agent, I feel, gets used in a variety of different contexts. And I don't really know exactly what people mean when they say an agent. So when we're talking about an agent, what do we mean here?
It's either a pre-prompted chatbot that has very precise instruction, but I would say in 2025, an agent would be a chatbot that has access to tools as well. Research, that can open URLs, that can scrape stuff, as we'll see later, that can do a bunch of stuff, and then just give you better results because it's more encoded into real life data. So in this case, like this is an agent because it's pre-prompted, it has access to Perplexity, and it has access to Firecrawl, which allows it to open web pages and read the content on these web pages. So that's pretty much it. So I have a pretty long, well-structured prompt. And to be honest, I'm looking at this prompt, I'm like, I do better ones now, you know? So it's like, I'm gonna update it, but like, first thing is I explain what the top level goal is. It's like, hey, we're writing a newsletter here. And our main goal is to just give practical info to people. We focus on AI and automation. It talks about me as well a bit. It's engaging, is sprinkled with Gail Breton's signature dry humor and punchy and conversational. And then sponsor section, the same way you would introduce a new employee to their task. After that, it has instructions. Again, it has 3 phases. It has the first phase, which is the planning phase, which, you know, it's thinking about. So it's like complete, it's thinking about the flow of the newsletter. It finds which highlights, like which actionable insights are going to be shared. It finds the gaps in the notes so that it thinks about like, hey, I need more information about this to fully write about this, etc. It thinks about the search queries to fill the gaps. It will think about how to make it sound like me. Then it will rethink the whole structure after it's done with this. That's the first phase. The second phase is research. So again, it has the search queries. So based on the gap analysis, do your searches, perform the search. You have access to an AI-powered search. So feel free to ask multifaceted questions. The point is, because it's Perplexity, it can ask like a prompt. It doesn't need to ask a single keyword the same way you would use Google, for example. So it's like I tell it, hey, it's powerful. Use it that way, you know?
Okay, so just to zoom in on that then, you have to tell it how to use the tool, and then you also have to connect the tool somehow as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about connecting the tools after if you want. And for this example, we're not even using MCP, so it's very easy. Then I tell it, every time there's a URL mentioned on the notes, open it, read it, and understand what this is about. Again, it fills its context, right? These models have lots of space in their context. Just fill it up without any effort from me.
I can see, though, that the instructions are a little bit more basic than a human would use. You could just say, oh, go use this Perplexity tool, and they would probably figure it out. Whereas you say, oh, if you find something, you have to open it. It's very kind of, you know, hand-holding instructions here.
Yeah, because otherwise you let the agent decide, and it's not always going to go the way you want. So you need to put guardrails around the process, so that it mostly follows what you want. It still has a little bit of decision power, but again, the more decision power you give it, the more random the output is going to be.
Do you have to give it a maximum number of attempts that it can try and use Perplexity, so it doesn't end up, you know, using it 1,000 times and costing lots of money?
I think it has it later, but let's see. In this case, it doesn't do too much because it kind of brainstorms the content gaps first, and as long as there's not like 1,000 content gaps, it's not going to do it. But I've had tool calls like you literally run in a loop, and I had to stop it because it would just destroy our credits, basically. You tell it like, hey, it's fine if you take your time in a research, just make sure you do everything, and then organize it and make a content plan, right? And then once it makes the content plan, it's just the writing part, right? Focus on the style, focus on all of that, etc. And then I gave it like an output format, so it's mostly like the newsletter is a set format, so there's, you know, a subject line, a pre-header, a hook, and an introduction, the main body with the value, then there is like the tool of the week, there is the links that we want to share, and then this prompt that makes people, asks people to reply, basically. So that's pretty much it. And
in general, if you're doing any kind of repetitive content, having a structure is helpful, but especially so with AI, like you're much more likely to get what you want when you clearly define the structure of it here. And that applies to any type of content you're creating.
Yeah. Then it has some rules. So like, 600 to 900 words in total. Sometimes we go a bit over, but roughly it sticks around that. And then again, a little bit of information to write good newsletter, like you need a strong hook, like follow with something personal, be genuine, and then even examples of sentences like holy shit, etc. Like, it says stuff like that so that it just sounds like me. Then it's like, focus on actually giving value to people, actionable stuff, etc. There's also like visually how it looks, like single sentence paragraphs, use line breaks, all the kind of stuff that I would want in a good newsletter. Same with language patterns. I actually gave it transcripts of me on the podcast, and then it just kind of wrote a lot of sentences I use, like I made this mistake, you're better off, you want me to, etc.
Kind of capturing the essence of you.
Yeah, of me. Exactly. That's the point. So it's like it gets like it's not perfect, but it's closer to it than I don't have to edit very much, basically. Then it explains, the subheadings have emojis, like, key insights at the beginning is a bit like TLDR, the beginning of every sentence, etc., etc. Formatting guidelines, voice, a lot of things that I want the AI to think about. And this is for this newsletter. If you did something else, you would do it differently, but you can look at this. And after that, what's important is at the end, I gave it examples of past newsletters, like full newsletters.
How many examples do you include?
2, because they're pretty long already. I don't attach any file anymore. I used to attach like these big swipe files to these agents. I don't anymore. I find 1 or 2 good examples are good enough, basically. So that's kind of like the prompt for it. And then in TypingMan, you have this thing called plugins. And in plugins, you can connect a bunch of tools. There's these MCP tools that we're going to be talking about in a second. But what I use here is I use this Perplexity one. So I'm not going to go in the settings because you would see my API key, but you go on Perplexity.ai, you get an API key, and then you put it there basically by putting an account. I think you get $5 when you sign up. And I use this one called Firecrawl. Essentially allows the chatbot to request the content of any web page in markdown format. So without all the shit in the HTML and so on. And so that
is that particularly beneficial for AI to have it in that format? Does it just get less confused, or I know you can do it cheaper?
It's also cheaper
by just like pulling all the HTML. No.
You can, but then you're going to put a bunch of HTML into your prompt, which is going to cost you tokens. And Firecrawl gives you 500 free scrapes per month. So for a newsletter, or anyone who does like manual work like this, it's plenty.
Yeah, you're never going to use that.
It's only if you're gonna start automating heavily that you're gonna run out. So
and just quickly explain, why are we using Perplexity search here as opposed to any other type of search? Is it just because it summarizes things so well, or is there any reason?
It just reads like 10, 15 sources, and then it just gives you the info that you're asking, and then the AI can think of like the high level thing they want, and then a sub AI basically does some research. It's like an agent using an agent, which is cool. And it's pretty cost effective if you use the Pro model. It's like 2-3 cents per query. I have Perplexity Pro with my Revolut account. So as part of it, I actually get $5 of API per month. So I pretty much never pay for Perplexity for like this kind of usage, at least. Once you scale up with automation, N8N, etc., different story. But for TypingMan, it's plenty already. You can choose which model you use on Perplexity, so you can ask for deep search. If you go into settings, you can see here I have Sonar Pro, but you could put Sonar Deep Search, and it would do like multiple searches and give you a much bigger report if you wanted. Sometimes I switch it. You just change the model name here, and it will give you the different Perplexity on the other end. Pretty handy, pretty powerful. Imagine an AI agent that can do like multiple deep searches, read all of it, and write your content based on that. That's powerful.
So if you were to put a price, if you had to guess how much it would cost to hire someone to do all of this newsletter work for you per month, what would you say?
How many newsletters per month? Once a week?
Well, let's say 1 a week, as we're doing at the moment.
Did you research it?
Yes.
Okay. It's quite difficult. Let's say a US worker. I would imagine like maybe $200-$300 per
salary.
newsletter. So let's say $300 per newsletter times 4, 1,200 times 12. So that's like 24K plus 200 times 12. So 1,200, like 14K, 15K.
Okay. Well, the average annual salary of a US email marketing manager is over $100,000, including
as a freelancer,
full compensation.
Okay.
On Upwork, globally, they make $25 an hour. In the US, a junior would make $30 to $50, and a senior would make $100 to $120 per hour. If you go to an agency, this would cost $1,500 per email written,
holy shit,
minimum, and 5 to 10K per month for the whole end-to-end setup. And that's a weekly newsletter at best. You start going daily and producing a lot more, than the numbers go up significantly. So this is an expensive thing to get.
2 hours 2-3 hours a week
Yeah,
for
and
this.
there are teams of people whose job it is to do what you've just shown that you do in like a couple of hours a week. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
And again, it has results, right? People like it. This is a newsletter people like reading. The engagement has gone up a lot since we've gone with this format. Has insights from us. Again, I guess if you hired someone to do it, they would need to collect insights from people. That might be the most annoying. But again, I would probably make some kind of AI prompting them, and then they would just reply, it would be transcribed, and I would just use this as context. There's a way to automate that part too, quite a bit.
I think interviewing the kind of content person or the knowledge expert, or even one a month, I've seen some content agencies do, and then they pull out multiple things from that.
Okay, well, that's quite valuable, definitely. And it's not super hard to build. Like a lot of people have email lists. A lot of businesses have email lists and don't email them engaging stuff. So I feel like if you wanted to sell that to businesses, that would be quite strong. And that could definitely boost their sales. Replace the sponsored section with like a promo for whatever the business is selling. And then sell that to an e-com. Like, I'm thinking about, again, these mental sleep guys, because we kind of take them always as an example, like sleeping masks. They could definitely do like some kind of newsletter with new research on sleep and optimizing your productivity and that kind of stuff. I can feel they would get lots of engagement and they could mix their promo with it, and that would make them money.
Great business model, I think. We can talk more at the end and we can compare the different business models together. But let's talk about the next one now, which is going to be around content formats and researching that. But first, let's have a quick word from today's sponsor, Surfer SEO. They've been a crucial part of our content optimization toolkit over the years, helping us to create more comprehensive content that ranks better in search engines. What's exciting is how much Surfer has grown, now with over 150,000 monthly active users and powerful new AI features to streamline your SEO workflow. Their coverage booster automatically fills content gaps by adding relevant facts and subtopics, making your articles more authoritative and complete with just one click. Surfer's NLP-powered term suggestions focus on semantic relationships, helping you naturally include related terms that improve search rankings without keyword stuffing. For teams, real-time collaboration allows multiple people to work and comment on the same document simultaneously. Plus, integrations with WordPress, Google Docs, and even Zapier make optimizing content effortless. And if you want to maintain your brand's authentic voice while leveraging AI, Surfer's custom voice feature lets you generate content that sounds like you, keeping authenticity intact. And that's something that's really hard to get right, so kudos to them for adding this. Check out surferseo.com to see how they can help you create better content that ranks. Thanks again to Surfer SEO for sponsoring this episode. Okay, so let's talk about content format analysis. And you've got a really cool example here of something you built on Twitter using one of these. I heard you mention the term MCP server. Do you want to maybe explain what that is before we go any further? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to be confused by that.
So I got a graphic actually that I found on medium.com that explains what an MCP is. And host with MCP client, that's basically your typing mind chat, right? That's the thing that actually uses the MCP server. And you connect to something called an MCP server. The simplest way to explain this is it's API for AI. So it means that it allows AI to use tools that you would probably normally log in to get access to. So an example here was Perplexity, but Ahrefs just launched one, for example. So you could use Ahrefs with it. I will show an example with Search Console on it. So what that does is AI can go in these tools, can run queries on it, get data, and then put that into their context and give you an answer that's based on the reality of things. As we will see in this example, we're analyzing a bunch of tweets from a guy who's doing really well, like Greg Eisenberg. He has a really strong podcast as well. He has lots of engagement. I was like, okay, how do I write tweets like him that get that many likes? Again, that's based on his personal brand. It's not because I copy his style that I'm going to get as many likes immediately, but there's maybe something to learn here, right? If I ask ChatGPT, how do I write tweets like Greg Eisenberg? It's just going to be based on like its training data on what it knows about the guy.
Which could be outdated.
Several years
Even
old.
If searching, it might not have access to Twitter. Yeah.
And it doesn't read his actual tweets when it answers to me. So it's very vague. It's kind of like what it remembers of him. Like the same way as if I ask you to remember something from 10 years ago versus actually going on Twitter, reading the tweets one by one, doing some pattern matching and understanding, looking at how many likes they get, and then doing some pattern matching on like what's working best, for example. And so like that's what we've done here. Let me show you the output. Literally the prompt is super basic. I'm like, hey, analyze the last 100 posts from Greg Eisenberg on Twitter over the last 3 months. Give me his top 10 as well as a full guide of what kind of posts/elements seem to be getting the most traction on the platform, and teach me how to build posts that get similar traction. And then as I use sequential thinking, that's another MCP that I'm going to show you how it works. And so what happened here is that instead of thinking about this guy, it actually went and scraped his last 100 tweets. I have all the content in my LLM here through an app called Apify. Actually, I used this software, which we're going to use a lot through this podcast. And that's basically a scraping app. Like you just go on there. There's a bunch of scrapers. You can see there's for Google Maps, for Instagram, for TikTok, but also for YouTube, for anything you can think of, any platform.
They have over 4,500 different scrapers. So if it exists online, there's probably an Apify.
Like if I go in there,
which will be able to scrape it.
Like social media, you'll find everything you can think of, like Reddit, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. All exists.
One of the real interesting things here is that each LLM kind of has, some of them have unique access to places like Reddit, some have Twitter, some have Meta, but none of them have them all. So this is one way, at least, to reach into those walled gardens and build context into whatever AI agent or process you're building, right?
And even if they have access, like you on ChatGPT, they have access to Reddit, right? But it will read like 2 or 3 threads and then it will just tell me something. It's not going to go deep like we just did here, pulling 100 posts, reading all of them and analyzing them. There's no way to do this unless you're scraping with something like Apify. For Apify is actually you pay per usage. So actually for this Twitter scraper, for example, you pay per event. Scraping a tweet is like 5 cents. So that was still not that cheap. That was like $5 basically to scrape 100 tweets. I connected this through this MCP server. So I connected to MCP server of Apify here that connected to the scraper, got me the data, gave it back to my LLM, and I processed it. That's what happened. And so that's what MCP servers allow you to do, is connect tools to your LLM.
Just to explain this in the simplest possible way, like the human process that this is replacing is, instead of you going to Greg's Twitter, reading it, analyzing it, maybe copy pasting some of the data, figuring out what the best or most engaged tweets are, AI is just going to scrape all of that, feed it into whatever process you're going to run, whatever you're asking it, and it'll have that context knowledge so it can work on that. So it's replaced that manual work that you were going to have to do.
Not only that, but I always get distracted by some tweet when I do this.
Yeah, so it's crazy on social media, like so difficult to work because you just see cat videos or whatever all the time.
At least it doesn't happen. This is much cleaner as an interface. And it's like, I'm focused here. I like that. The drawback is I don't see the images. But I'm going to get the links to, you'll see in my result, I actually get the links to the tweets. So I can just click on my result, and these are real links to the stuff that actually works. So then I can go check the images on the stuff that worked. But I didn't have to scroll his whole timeline. It just found me the best ones. Because it doesn't just have the content of the tweet. It has how many likes it has, how many bookmarks it has, etc. And so it was able to essentially identify, which ones. It did some thinking here. It was like, oh, I'm going to find the top 10 tweets using metrics like bookmark, likes, retweets, and replies. And then I'm going to start making my guide based on that. So it did all of that. It found me the top 10 tweets. Very handy. Again, very simple to analyze someone's social media that way. Oh, yeah. And it got lazy. It didn't do it. So I was like, no, actually do the rest of the stuff. And it's like, it did it. And it made me a full guide on like the stuff that works. Practical, useful frameworks, big list, bold forward, build in public, that kind of stuff. I got all of that. It made me a full guide, basically, which I could feed into an LLM that writes tweets for me later. Now, the one thing that we need to talk about is how would you connect MCP to TypingMind a little bit. I'm not going to go too much in detail because it's quite nerdy, but it's not that difficult either. And I'm not going to do it live because I've already done it. I don't want to break it. But basically, you go in TypingMind, you go in your settings, you go in MCP. Here you see all the list of the servers you have connected. So you see I have all these servers connected already. You click on Edit Server because you have nothing at the beginning, and you need to click on Setup Connector. When you click on Setup Connector, you will get this window, and you will click on this device. And then it will tell you to open your terminal app, which is an app that you have.
A little bit scary if you're
it's nothing
honest,
special.
Like
it's
starting
not
to get into coding, but you just follow the instructions here.
And then it's going to give you that line, this npx TypingMind. So you will just copy paste this in the terminal. You don't need to know what it does. It will ask you, do you want to do this? You will click yes or Y on the terminal, and then that's it. And after that, you will have a file that looks like this. Like I'm going to show it on my TypingMind. Yep, you can see it here. You have this JSON here. I'm not going to scroll down because I have a bunch of API keys here. But the point is like you connect your servers that way. Some of them will require API keys. So for example, if I go on to the Apify one, and you will find the one that says NPX, and you will just essentially copy the one that you already have, the example that you have here. You will paste it into like Gemini or something, and then you'll be like, please also add this server, and you'll paste this as well. And it will just update your file for you, and you'll just paste it here. If it asks you for an API key, you can get an API key on your Apify thing. So for example, you see it says like your Apify token here. I would just go in my Apify thing, and I would go in my settings, and there's an API key there, basically. And that's pretty much all you do. So you give your API key to Gemini, you give it that bit of text, it's going to edit it, you paste the text Gemini gives you here, you click Save Changes, MCP is set up. The
So
one thing that
one text file that you've got under Model Context Protocol inside
Yeah.
TypingMind, that is basically a list of all the MCP servers that has access to, including your API keys. Okay.
Yeah. And so when it works, you can essentially see the active MCP servers are here. And when you're in your chat, you will see them. You can activate them here, basically.
You do have to turn them on each time, is that right?
Well, you can put them by default. Like
Okay.
some models are actually broken with them. So like Gemini, for example, does not work with most of them right now. Hopefully it will be fixed. It's a bug. So I activate them right now.
That's specifically in TypingMind, or that's
That's in TypingMind.
and other things as well. Okay.
And A10 is different. So in TypingMind, that's why I'm using GPT 4.1. I found is kind of the best one at using all these tools. So 4.1, 4.1 mini are the ones that I would be using. All of that to say that was pretty cool. I guess social media managers do this, right? They kind of identify what's winning with.
There's a specific job for this. It's called a social media analyst.
Okay.
In the US, this is the average salary per year is $72,000. Crazy how high salaries are in the US now, actually. Upwork, so the freelance platform, globally, $40 per hour for social media analyst. In the US, you're talking about $30 to $40 an hour for a junior and $100 to $150 for a senior US social media analyst, which is
I'm going to start
insane.
taking jobs on Upwork.
And even more crazy, an agency charges, and I didn't even know this was a thing, but an agency that just does strategy, reporting, and content format testing frameworks charges between $2,000 and $10,000 per month. So they're not actually making any content for you. They're just essentially advising you, which is pretty crazy.
I'll do the content too, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, all of that to say, it's pretty powerful. The reason why these agencies still get to charge that in the age of ChatGPT is because it doesn't have that context of actually going through all the posts, etc. But that bridges the gap. That's why the MCP and the Apify is super powerful. And I think you have an edge over most people who use AI if you do this. I think most people don't do this. It's not widespread. And because, as you said, it's a little bit scary to set this up for some people, it's they won't do it. But honestly, the marketing kind of arbitrage here is crazy given the value, actually. So again, you want to get going on social media, you want to build yourself some style guides that you can also use for chatbots. You want to identify what works on a platform. It's not hard to go on Perplexity to find these people as well, right? Be like, hey, who are the top 10 influencers in your niche? Just go and check them, scrape their stuff on the platform you want to actually optimize for, and build style guides, and then use that to train another agent.
You could even make an agent that does that, right?
Yeah.
It also has access to Perplexity.
And then you give it Perplexity, you give it all of that, it will research, and then you give it a top level idea or some kind of insights or whatever, or you have a cool photo that you can attach with, and you just have it write the content, and it will pick the format, it will research it, it will write it for you, you can quickly edit it and post it. What I like about this as well is because you kind of work on a chatbot, you still have this back and forth and this control on the final thing, whereas when you fully automate it on something like an A10, that's when it kind of becomes a slop sometimes because you don't have the revisions. This is the right balance between automating a lot, but at the same time retaining control and making sure it's quality.
Let's move on then to a slightly more practical example, because the last one was more about analyzing competitors and bringing insights there. But if I want actual content topics, like ideas, how can I build something here?
Okay, so I have another example here where I had AI scrape Reddit, as you can see. It basically went on this one subreddit I gave it. To be honest, I should have given it multiple subreddits, but it went and scraped the top thread on our ChatGPT Pro, which is supposedly a bit more of an advanced subreddit. And it has the upvotes, it has everything. And you can see it has the content in there as well.
The comments?
I didn't in this case. I just kind of looked for which topics did well and kind of how many upvotes, etc. And based on that, I had it kind of brainstorm YouTube video ideas. So, for example, a lot of people are reporting problems with the memory and also chats disappearing. There's multiple threads talking about that. ChatGPT is losing chunks of a conversation. There's a bunch of these. And so that is an interesting thing. Maybe that's not the best YouTube video in this case. It's not really actionable. Writing custom killer instruction for ChatGPT, we'll use a pro tips. So there's a bunch of threads here that it found with people sharing how they put custom instructions to ChatGPT to get better answers, basically. And so you can go through these and make a video from these. That's one of them. People comparing GPT search with Perplexity seems to be one thing that people are asking. Hallucinations, there's a lot of drama around the O3 and O4 mini. Apparently they hallucinate more than before. So that's another topic. And then wanting to see real workflows, basically, people asking about that, etc. So that's kind of the idea it came up with based on essentially scraping a bunch of these threads, reading them and giving me ideas. And again, I use this Reddit Scraper Lite that costs, again, is very cheap. Like you can see I scraped a lot, and I'm at $6 usage. So that's
for
not
the whole
too,
month.
So it's not too bad, but like it's per GB. I'm not exactly sure how much that would have been, but I think this query is probably like a few cents basically to scrape a bunch of these. And again, I think I could have gotten better results if I put like 10 subreddits, for example. The point is to put a volume of data and fill the context. But you can see I've used a lot of tokens here. I've used 1.3 million tokens. So it goes fast when you put this stuff. But thanks to the caching, it got much cheaper.
So a use case of this would be maybe if there were a whole heap of subreddits in your industry that you wanted to monitor, you could run this process maybe once a month or once a week and just constantly get new ideas out of it for what's trending, what people are talking about.
Imagine if you do
your,
like you do your reels right now, right? Imagine if we could make a system that essentially does this daily, finds what's trending, researches the topic, writes you a script, pings you on Notion, and essentially you just have to quick edit and
I was thinking about that as you're showing through this example. It's a perfect use case. I think though we would need to dive a bit deeper and actually pull out what people are talking about in the comments as well, because that's like where people are asking questions and struggling. That's often where you get some good ideas from.
I agree. So I would tweak this one. This one can scrape the comments too. Like if I go here, I read it. It's like it can also scrape comments. So what I would need to do is make kind of like a two-step thing where it finds the threads first, gets the URLs from the subreddit, and then after it has the list of URLs for each interesting thread, goes and pulls the comments and fills its context and then just basically makes the answer. I think that would be a bit better. I agree. This is more of a proof of concept, but you can say it works. And it's just like, this wasn't a good prompt. This is very basic, and that's why you can level it up basically. And so another source of content ideas that people actually care about is YouTube comments, like going into the comments of YouTube videos. And again, I've done the same thing here. Okay, this one I wrote a better prompt actually. And then I told it like scrape 300 comments per video. Like these are popular videos in AI. And then essentially identify which ones could be a good idea, group similar comments under the same ideas, and then make a list of ideas for each idea. Give me a one-liner where it's good, the comments that actually support it, and then give an idea of what a YouTube video based on this would look like, basically. And then I gave it that. Sometimes you see these tools fail. So for example, it tried to scrape both at the same time and it kind of errored. It happens. It did it one by one.
Was that because it was trying to do it too quickly maybe? Or
I think it timed out. You can see here it timed out. It happens. It's not perfect to code, but it's fine. It understands that it needs to try again, so it did it. And again, you can see for one video, I have hundreds of comments that are pulled. And it's like, if I scroll it, you can see there are comments here. Obviously, lots of useless comments. But that's the point. It's like, I don't have to read them. AI can read them for me and identify the questions people are asking, the troubles they're having. So it's very powerful on your competitors' videos or even on your own videos to identify what your audience wants to see. So it did that and then it used that sequential thinking, which is basically a way to make a cheap model reason, right? So it decided to analyze the comments from the first video, identify what is actionable, and then do that. And so it just basically thinks. Same as a reasoning model does, except it's 4.1 mini, so it's very cheap. So I did all of that, and then it basically came up with a bunch of ideas, like how to build your first AI agent to save time in your business. Again, not the best headline, but there's a bunch of comments that were like, oh, if you're a person in your 30s learning AI from scratch, what course, website, or method would you use? N8N tutorial for non-technical user, please. I'd be interested. I need a hand setting it up. So like people are asking for this. It just gives you an idea of how to package it. So like build your first AI agent in 30 minutes, step by step for non-tech marketers and business owners. Pretty okay.
Pretty good, yeah.
Title. The second one was comparing top AI automation tools, business, Lindy versus N8N versus others. Again, a lot of people, like this was like a demo of Lindy, I think, that got lots of views. And like the comments that inspired this was like, honestly, you can do most of what Lindy AI does for free with open tools like N8N. How does this compare to another tool? Open source sounds great. Like the point is like people are asking compared to other tools. So again, pretty good. I think arguably better than the Reddit ideas so far.
Do you think that's because there's like a lot deeper context in
the video,
than just one initial.
And again, you can run this as a multi-step where you give it a channel and it will find the top videos and then it will scrape the comments on these top videos and give you a lot of ideas. The problem is because you put so much data, you might even run out of context size even after 1 million context. The API costs rack up fast when you put that much data into it.
And is this one of those situations where the context size limits start to become an issue? Because we're using OpenAI ChatGPT 4.1 here. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I was thinking because like the Gemini ones are known to have the largest context, like 2 million or something.
The 4.1 models are made for agentic use, so they're good at tool calling and they have a larger context window. So they're pretty good. 4.1 mini is okay, not the smartest. 4.1 is good, but it can rack up. Like I had like queries like this that cost me $2 in API costs, for example. So again, if you run 50, that can go quickly. But again, if you sell this for like hundreds of dollars, like I'm happy to pay $2, you know? So same like, idea when a real business use case of AI agents to automate repetitive tasks. And the package is like 3 AI agents transforming business workflows, automate emails, lead and competitor analysis. Yeah, it's okay. I think like the ideas are decent. So it's like, this is quite powerful actually overall too. And then it's pretty annoying. Like you could send this to read thousands of comments. Like you could just input 10 videos. Obviously you might run out per query. So you might want to run them as a batch of like 3, 4, 5 videos with lots of comments, but you can basically process 1,000 comments per query, do that in like 3 minutes. And again, let's look at the costs a bit. So scraping YouTube video URLs is $5 per 1,000 video URL scraped. So that's fine. And for the comment scraper, it's $2 per 1,000 comments. So again, I mean, the thing is that you're going to scrape a lot of comments.
You can limit it to like, the first 100 comments or maximum certain
And you can also say it in your
crazy.
prompt. So for example, in the prompt here, I said scrape up to 300 comments on the video given. And that's what it did. If you look at the query, it said max comments 300.
And look, I mean, we're talking about like a few dollars here and there. Like the time cost to do this for yourself or a freelancer is infinitely higher. So we're optimizing something, but it's really not a problem if you're just running this a few times,
Yeah, you don't need to do it that many times. Again, if you need to come up with 10 ideas, I would spend like $10, $12 of full API costs with like my model, my scraper, my everything, and save literally days of work. And potentially this would be better ideas as well. Like you might do better.
You definitely capture stuff that a human would miss. I actually had a look at how much a content strategist costs to hire as well. And $81,000 a year is the average US salary, $45 per hour globally on Upwork. A junior person in the US, $50. A senior person up between $100 and $250 per hour.
Salaries in the US.
In the US to do this. Agencies cost $2,000 to $10,000 a month, probably around 5K average. It depends how much you're looking at here. And that's just for the ideas, right? That's not script writing. That's not making the video. That's just to tell you what you should make a video
based on
about.
doing
and
exactly.
Of course, there'll be a bit more detail around and I'm sure that the reports are nice and all that.
I mean, it's not hard to do that. Like if I make it on n8n, I can have a beautiful PDF coming on the other side, So it's all doable. These are just like raw proofs of concept,
It's a very systematizable, if that's a word, business that you could build with this.
Yeah, there's a lot of side hustles too. A lot of people like email me and like, oh, how do I make money with this stuff? Like honestly, just take side gigs of these kind of things and then just automate it like that and sell it to people. People still pay pretty much full market price for these things. And yeah, it's like, I mean, $50 an hour. The problem is on Upwork, they track your hours, right? What do I do?
You either do hourly rate or you do like a one-off contract rate.
Yeah,
and I've noticed on Upwork recently more and more people want to do the one-off contract rate because they're not incentivized just to twiddle their thumbs and jiggle their mouse once every 10 minutes to stay active. They'll get it done faster basically, and they can use AI to automate it.
Yeah, so do that, like negotiate one-off prices for like the output and then just take these side gigs and you'll make more money than running content sites these days, and arguably in a less painful, more predictable way.
All right, let's talk about the next one here, which is going to be creating full YouTube scripts. But before we do that, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. At Authority Hacker, we've processed tens of millions of dollars in sales through Thrivecart since 2018. And their new Pro Plus tier has us genuinely excited about what's possible for digital product sellers. Their latest update introduces multiple order bumps that stack complementary offers at checkout, which can increase your average order value by between 10 and 30%. And their new tax-inclusive pricing option shows customers the final price upfront, helping to reduce cart abandonment. But what sets Thrivecart apart are their practical innovations like checkout QR codes for in-person sales, advanced UTM tracking for marketing attribution, and even crypto payments options through USDC that are very exciting. Their platform is designed with conversion in mind, offering customizable checkout templates and A/B testing capabilities that let you optimize every element of your sales process. Everything integrates seamlessly with major teaching, email, and payment platforms. And after evaluating all available options, we've stuck with them for over 7 years now because they simply deliver the best results. So check out thrivecart.com today to get the best shopping cart experience for digital sellers. Thanks again to Thrivecart for sponsoring this episode. Okay, so how do we create an entire YouTube script using a process like this, Gail?
Okay, so I mean, I didn't do the full process here. If I did it fully, I would also insert Perplexity in there. But here I focused on the new stuff I haven't showed you yet, otherwise boring, you know. I made an agent that watches YouTube videos to get inspiration.
Okay.
Again, if you want to do content, like it's a good idea to look at like who's doing well, what they're talking about, and also to extract the gems out of the content. There's always like one trick or one thing that you can pick up here and there. Prepare your script, first of all. That's how you make a script that stands out. You make good content. So I have this YouTube transcript extractor that I actually found on Apify as well. Again, $5 per 1,000 transcripts. It's fine. You won't ruin yourself getting these.
Is one transcript a whole video?
Yeah.
That seems really cheap. Okay.
And I've made an agent. So here I have like a bit more of a very simple prompt that basically says, hey, you're an expert content researcher. Your job is to read YouTube video transcript based on the topic and create in-depth video outlines for the topic, include all the best tips and tricks and teaching of the top videos organized logically. And then just instruction, again, I guardrailed it, right? 1, pick the search term that you're going to search for on YouTube based on the query. 2, search for the top 10 video. 3, use the video's URL and scrape the subtitles for each video using the video transcript extractor tool that you have access to. I actually put the wrong numbers. See, I can't count because I changed the prompt. So I should fix it. But I think AI is smart enough to figure this out.
Smart enough to realize what to do.
Yeah, that's what happens when you edit your prompts. Then analyze the subtitles. Then extract all the gems from the video. And then organize the info and then put a full outline for the topic, including all the interesting bits for the videos analyzed, right? Again, I could add Perplexity onto it. Be like, oh, and search for extra data on Perplexity, add it to your outline, etc. You can put more stuff. I could give it URLs, tell it to read it. It's unlimited. You can combine these things how you want, right? And I put some constraint like make sure you use the scraping tools. Don't make facts up. Actually, all the big AI companies in their system prompt tell AI to not hallucinate. So apparently it helps. And always include URLs and tools when mentioned. But in this case, it's like for a tutorial, right? And because it was pre-prompted, again, I didn't have to like prompt too much. I said, watch YouTube videos for N8N for beginners, prepare me an outline, use sequential thinking, which is one of these MCPs that makes it think between steps, basically the reasoning MCP I'm using. And again, use this. So it first searched for these 2 queries, which is N for beginners and tutorial for beginners. Probably there was some overlap here, but that's fine. You got the results. So you got all the URLs and the videos basically. So you got all these results. Then after that, it used the transcript extractor. So you can see it put this first it tried 10 and it was too much. It timed out. So it tried 5 and it got 5. And here, these are the full transcripts. So you can see you can read the transcript here. You can see the transcript here. It's all of it, right?
And is that like, you know, YouTube generates the auto captions?
Yeah.
Is it somehow pulling that file?
This is exactly what this is. So it's kind of like a cheap way to transcribe the video. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for context for an AI. Basically, yeah, it has these 5 videos that it watched, and then it starts reasoning on it and thinking about all this stuff. So it's thinking about how it's going to organize things. And then it gave me a full video outline. And if you look at the outline, I mean, we use an N8N quite a bit. First of all, I understood that people want to build AI agents with an N8N. So I like that. I think if I just asked ChatGPT to make me an outline for an N8N, it wouldn't do that. And then after that, the examples it gives are good, you know, like Claude versus self-hosted, which is like a big thing, how to get your API keys and access. It gives the right examples of triggers, they're not made up, etc. Looking at the execution log, it's real, basically. Because it read all this stuff, it's good enough. And then you can see it actually has the link to the videos it used. And then if I click on these links, they're real videos, right? It's like they're not made up. That's a 30-minute video that I actually watched. It's not hallucinated. And then after that, or once you have an outline, I would ask it to use Perplexity to enrich the outline if I did another one, if I was implementing more tools. But for the sake of speed here, we're going to skip that part. And I generated a quick writing prompt on writing a script using this outline. And yeah, it has a pretty good script that is exactly talking about the stuff that we're talking about. It tells you what to show. And because it's based on all the real stuff, it actually has like all the real commands and everything, because the scriptwriter can also read the transcripts because it's part of the chat history. So it reads the transcripts of all the other videos and my outline, and it makes my script for it. And it looks good, you know, like, oh, look at these curly brackets, click on test step, which is exactly what you do actually when you do use an N8N. If everything works, you will see a success message appear on your Slack channel. It's good actually.
And
so
I think the kind of secret sauce here is not trying to do everything in oneers, like breaking it down into stages, which is exactly what you do when you're actually creating a YouTube video, right? You don't just start writing the script. You make the outline, and then it's infinitely easier to make the script. And AI is essentially replicating that whole human process here, which is crazy.
Yeah. Now imagine if you had Perplexity on top. You had Perplexity deep research. You can use that as well before it writes the script. All the script writer is like, oh, I want to dig this deeper. Let me just research this and check that. Like read the N8N node documentation or something like this to talk about this stuff. So that's the thing. It's like now we're getting to a point where we can get, these agents are replicating the human process of the content creation. And that's why it's not shit anymore, because it's not just using whatever training data the LLM has, but it's just browsing the internet, open stuff. It's quote unquote watching videos. And after that, doing content, which is how we create content too, right?
Yeah, it's replicating the human process, as I said. And if you're someone who has tried in the past to create content with ChatGPT without any of this fancy context, you know, hey, write me a script about such and such.
Yeah,
and
no
it's
way.
been like, it's mediocre, no way, this will never work. Like, it has changed. It's actually good now. This isn't generic crap that you would just sell. This is stuff that we would use to create a YouTube video that would get views.
Let's look at the best practices. Start small and build incrementally. You'd probably tell people to do that. Test before you put the workflow live. Document your workflow with clear names and descriptions. Use community templates and learning resources. Yeah, but the community templates are amazing in N8N, and join the community that they have. It's decent. It has the real URLs as well. You see, it didn't hallucinate. If I open this is going to work, right? These are the docs of N8N. So it's all very, very well anchored. And that's because you put so much into the memory of the LLM. Again, we spent almost 1 million tokens building this outline because of all the stuff we've put in there. But still, we're looking at a total cost of $0.2 right now, plus scraper cost. So,
20 cents plus, you know, let's say plus $1 for scraping. It was less than that, but let's say $1.20 to create that. Whereas if you want to hire a full-time US scriptwriter for YouTube, it will cost you $75,000 a year.
That's crazy.
There's a mismatch here, right? And look, I appreciate having someone high level to take the output of this and add that final finishing touches, and the last 10% to it does make a big difference. And I still think for a long time there will be huge value in that. But if you're a junior scriptwriter who isn't aiming much higher, how long do you have left?
Yeah, not a lot. You just need to have taste now. You just need to kind of like steer it, and you need to have taste, and you need to learn how to build this. Because you can watch this podcast, but if you're not actually learning the MCP stuff or whatever, like this is not going to be useful to you. You need to go and do that stuff. It's not hard. It's like the most scary thing is like putting that line in a terminal. After that, AI can do the JSON file for you. You can do all of that. And that's like a test of skill right now. The people who do not learn this will be left behind. There's no way that you will make it in 5 years if you learn this. So
I think for any job where you're using a computer, this right here is the single most important thing you can learn and do right now, bar none.
And it's cheap. Like, look, it's like I spent like $10 preparing this podcast in all API costs and everything. And that's me wasting a lot of stuff and not being careful. It's like, how much does education cost in the US again? Just to remind me.
$150,000 minimum, plus whatever interest on your loan. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So
and we're also in this unique period right now where most people don't realize that this can be automated. And so they're still paying full human rates for it. And you have probably a few years until this really adapts. Like if you remember early ChatGPT days when people started using AI to create written blog post content, there were writers earning hundreds of thousands a year. I mean, people knew it was crap, but they just wanted like SEO content. But they were making lots of money because they were still charging their full rate for it, but they were producing it in like a few minutes. It's the same here now with scripts. So
with agents in general, build yourself agents that can actually use tools. And it's like the rest of the world has not caught up. And you have an advantage here.
You can sell a script for about $1,000 to $2,000 for a good one. That's
I would say you probably need to polish it a bit. Like, for that price, like you'd probably need some editing of what comes on the other side, but you could still shave.
Absolutely. But this is 80% of the work is probably done by this.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got one more example. And here we're actually diving back into our SEO roots and looking at an SEO analyst job to sort of analyze Search Console and some things here. Tell us, what have you got for us here?
So this one was like a bit rough. I didn't run it multiple times, but I have an MCP that I found here on GitHub. A lot of these MCPs are run on GitHub. You need to be a bit careful for this because they can be run by anyone. And so your data transits through these servers.
So your API key with this, or?
Maybe. So for example, the Apify we use, like this is run by Apify. They already have your API key. Like there's nothing to steal. They just want you to use their service and pay them for it. These kind of GitHub ones, be a bit more careful. This one has good reviews and it's been reviewed by people from what I've Googled. But be careful when you use the public MCP servers that you find on GitHub. but kind of handy. Again, you find this little piece here, you ask Gemini to add it to your file, and then you need to actually set up a project in Google Cloud Console. It's a little bit annoying, but there is some documentation that you can find here. I would just follow that basically. It will take you like 10-15 minutes to do. It's free, and you set that up. And what that means is now my typing mind can use GSC, right? So actually, like you see, for example, it has access, it was like listing sites, and it has access to Authority Hacker. And then what that allows me to do is to start asking questions like, oh, how's the traffic doing versus last week, for example? It's like, oh, for the week of April, you got 9,300 clicks. The week before, you got 9,200. So you decreased by 136 clicks, right? But then you can go a little bit deeper. So you can just chat with your data. It's like, oh, how is it evolving overall? And it starts doing a bunch of queries and syncing and telling you overall the traffic is stable with minor fluctuations week to week without significant downward trend. And then after that,
just sort of reading this, I'm like, this looks eerily similar to the type of client report you would send to an SEO client each month.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, let's level it up a bit. Let's make this reason a bit on the data. Do a deep analysis of the last 3 months and give me a full report of what's going on. So I started to think, where should I search for? And I did a search of like, I want the whole site for these dates. And then I want to aggregate this. Oh, I'm going to run also this one with like 1,000 rows. There was only 12 last time for some reason. Again, these calls are free, so it's fine. Not a big deal. But basically just kind of thought and search for data. And then they started telling me like, your impressions are up, but your clicks are down, like your city, again, AI overviews rolling out. That's what's happening. It just gives me a whole situation of what's happening. And I'm like, okay, what are my top growing and shrinking pages? And again, it goes and gives me, sorry, I don't think it did it here actually. Yeah, I was like, oh, it didn't do it. So I was like, I need to remind it of the tools because this wasn't pre-prompted. So I was like, use sequential syncing and the tool. Now I did it. It pulled the data and now I had the data. So I could see which pages are growing, which pages are shrinking. And then I was like, okay, great. This page is growing. Analyze it, identify opportunities, and then use Brave Search and Firecrawl to see who is outranking me. And what do they have on their page that I don't have, that I should be adding on my page to start ranking, basically? Base your recommendations on what you've observed on the top ranking pages. So very much like what an SEO would do, right? Analyze a page, analyze the pages that rank above, decide. And so what it did is, it thought about it, it got data for the URL, then it actually did the search, like best travel affiliate program, travel affiliate programs, and it got the results, basically, like the top 5 on Google. I got some rate limit exceeded, actually, on some stuff. Then it opened the pages that outrank me with Firecrawl to actually read the content. And then it basically said, oh, you're ranking between 2 and 6 for these queries, like best travel affiliate programs. Here's the top competitors and an action list. And it just tells me what people are doing. Again, not perfect because testimonial carousel is for booking.com, I think, which is like they're promoting their affiliate program. So again, it needs to be reviewed a bit.
You could tweak this, yeah.
I would need to prompt it a bit better, etc. The point is it just went on all these pages, identified what was on these pages that outrank me, and started making me a list of things like top tools and network section. That's okay. How to monetize, guys, apparently. Like that's probably something that might work for this page. A visual comparison table, like apparently some people might have that. And then it's just like some schema markup, etc. in there. But the point is like I can now have an AI model. It's not perfectly prompted here because this was just like a quick test of the MCP. But imagine if I ran like a proper reasoning model and I made it think a little bit more, etc. And
if you show examples of what you're trying to
of what the output
well,
is, etc.
More accurate.
And because my prompts, you see, they were a bit dirty compared to the other ones. Like the potential is here. And again, Ahrefs has now an MCP as well. So I could give access to Ahrefs to that bot. So you could check which keywords the other pages rank for that I don't rank for and start making recommendations based on that. And you can have essentially an agent that does a lot of the basic SEO work of basic reoptimizing of your pages, especially after Google updates and so on. So
I'm even thinking for like outbound sales or sales calls, like being able to generate insights about them and their competitors, like it's super valuable. Like that's stuff that people would spend, hours creating manual reports on.
So now you can connect Ahrefs, GSC, Google Analytics, and it can also open the page basically and see what the content is and analyze all of that.
And this might be a case where you actually don't want to use Firecrawl because you might actually want to see the HTML if you're analyzing some technical SEO stuff here as well.
Yeah, so there's different ways to do it. And again, it's probably a prompt chain. I think like it's a bit too much for like one LLM call. So I would probably break it down on like, okay, the first one collects the data, the second one analyzes, and the third one was the report, for example, so that it focuses more on each task. But it's totally doable, I think, or we're very close to it at least.
Yeah, you could even then have it create like a, one of these Loom video scripts that people send out when they're doing cold outreach with like, hey Gen AI avatar and pull all that together and like just fully automate your outbound.
Yeah, automate updating because you could plug that into an AI writing agent that also does the research, does all of that, etc. And then you can potentially update the page. Depends on like how it's formatted and uploaded on your CMS. But I think for like simple pages, it might be doable actually. We're quite close to like automating SEO at this point. But that's going to be one of my challenges soon. I think Tim kind of challenged me on this at Ahrefs. So we'll see, but it's powerful. All of this to say.
So fully automate SEO, like press a button and do SEO. You think that's possible?
The dream that we've had since SE Nuke, you know? So how much does that cost?
I mean, to hire an SEO agency, and I'm not talking about to work on a local business, for like a normal size website, you're talking $2,000 to $5,000 a month easily. SEO analysts now in the US earn on average $85,000 a year, and on Upwork, junior about $50 an hour, senior $100 to $200 an hour. Now, of course, there's more to SEO than this. You've got content
that's
creation,
just one small
link
process.
building, many other parts. But you know, this is gonna save what, 15 hours a week of an SEO manager, an SEO analyst job by building this out properly.
I think it's going to be, again, I think it's nice for the overall site, but I really like the URL by URL thing. Like, I can imagine like taking the sitemap and then looping over each URL and having like 3, 4, 5 prompt chains. And then essentially you just end up with like a big list of tasks for the SEO team, or even like whatever cannot be done. You make a task on Notion and people just go and do it, and they don't have to think too much. They just verify and they either discard the task or actually do it. It's going to change things a lot.
And for everyone who has a few years ago been forced to switch to Google Analytics and still has no idea
you don't need to use it,
well, you don't need to. You can just ask this and it will find all the data you need and explain it to you in simple terms. So there you go.
The MCP for analytics is still a bit basic. It still needs a little bit of progress, but it's going fast. So I would say 3 months from now, it's going to be quite good, actually.
This is a very new technology, right? You know, this is just integrated into TypingMind like a week ago or something. And
MCP was like end of last year it was released, but nobody used it back then. It was just Anthropic that kind of invented this, but now it's like every big company is making an MCP server, so like you can officially connect to them the same way we saw it for Apify. And that's it. That's what AI is this year. It's like if you're still prompting on ChatGPT, you're already behind. You need to learn how to do agents because that becomes, as you saw, a lot more useful and practical. And not only that, but like we're doing this within TypingMind today, but you can do this on NA10 and other tools that run in the background, and you don't have to be the one prompting every time. Like this is a great place to like test stuff or quickly ask for questions, etc. But the point is, as I said, like imagine looping over thousands of URLs on a website and each running these prompts one by one, feeding into a database and preparing the tasks that need to be done and all doing some of them. That's where we're going with all of this, because that technology doesn't need an interface. It can just be done in the back end, and that's the power. So I guess I'm going to say if we get more than 10,000 views on this podcast, which is unlikely, I'll make the NA10 version maybe. Otherwise, so just share it, basically. That's the point.
And it's just crazy in my mind, like how many opportunities there are for different processes, different businesses that you can build out of this, like right now. And that's just doing the basic stuff. That's not connecting it all together. If you have to pick of all of the things you've talked about today, if you were starting a business right now, which one would you build?
For business, I think the SEO stuff. I'm sorry, but many SEO people are a bit shit at tech.
Like, to be fair, it's one of those weird subjects. You have to be a bit good at data. You have to be a bit good at technical stuff, you know, with the website. But you also have to be good at marketing and brainstorming creative stuff. And not many people have all of those things.
And also, we have credibility in SEO, so probably I would pick that one.
Okay, but like to push back on that, if you had no podcast, reputation, email list to get started with, like it's very hard to break into SEO because there's so many. It's the biggest market, I think, of all of this, but there's so many people doing it. That's quite challenging. And I think because I like stuff that fits in nice boxes and it's easy to track and measure, the email generation, the email management for newsletters would be what I would choose because it's high value. You can sell it for a lot, 5, 10K plus. You can get results for them, like sales, which can be measured. Generally, when people do this stuff, they keep doing it long term. So,
and it's not hard. I mean, like again, like I don't want to give all my tricks, but I'm going to give one more, okay?
Okay, like, just for those people who stay to the very end.
Who stay till the end, like honestly. Like,
and encourage you to stay to the end on future episodes
5% of people
as well.
But like,
all right.
For example, you know, there's a lot of platforms that summarize books, right? The one that you're using.
Blinkist,
Yeah. So like, think about Blinkist, right? They make
This is Blinkist is should be fully done by AI now, right?
I mean, there are like Headway also is another one that is now does like AI voiceovers for the summaries and so on. But the point is that there is lots of very good copywriting books, for example, in Blink that are summarized in Blinkist in like a 15-page PDF, right? These are incredible training for your newsletter copywriter, etc. You don't even need to be that good at that stuff. You just need to find the right resource to fit to your model that's going to teach it how to write. And so I find the book summarizing platforms to be excellent places to collect training data for these kind of agents mixed together with the tools, etc. And so that is going to make up for the knowledge gap you might have for the niche you're picking, i.e. newsletter writing, for example, for copywriting, but also for SEO and stuff.
I thought you were going to have an idea to create a Blinkist, but that did YouTube videos, podcasts,
YouTube
and all media,
would be
all
good.
media formats. Imagine if there was a Blinkist for the AI industry, or a Blinkist for the SEO industry that just followed everyone, subscribed to everyone, and just pulled all the insights this week, and you just logged in and there was one page, what do I need to know that happened this week?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that potentially. There would be a lot of backslash because when you scale scraping, then you face legal issues. But other than that, yeah, that could work. That's the problem. But then again, is Google going to sue you after they scrape the entire internet to make their LLM?
Exactly.
Like, who's going to sue you? Exactly. That's not guilty themselves, you know? That's the question you need to ask. But potentially, yeah. So that's AI agents for you. I wanted to show some of the tech. I wanted to show you some of the results. And again, lots of opportunities for side hustles here. Yeah, it's going into the service industry, but a lot of the actual service delivery can be automated or largely automated, and you kind of put the finishing touches on it. And that's very good money per hour, basically.
All right, guys, let's try and get this podcast episode to 10,000 views on YouTube. So
and then I'll do the N8N version.
Share it with someone who you think would benefit from this. Leave a comment to pump that engagement. Which of these business models do you think you would do? Do you have any other ideas for how you could change some of this stuff with what you're doing? Make sure you subscribed as well so you don't miss the next episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks. See you then.